Hello everyone, my name's Lucky Explosion and welcome to the 4th episode of The Lucky Show. That's right, the show where I, your host, Lucky Explosion, talk about anything about movies, games, reviews, or sometimes my personal favorite thing to talk about, personal preferences of things that happen in my life, or anything related to that sort of topic. And yes, we're finally here and we're ready to bring about some new amounts of exciting content. So, alrighty, let's just go ahead and and just get this off my chest. I know this took very long to make, but it's here now, so hopefully this episode does quite well for you guys, and I really do hope you enjoy it. Now, to start us off, let's go ahead and talk about three things real quick. Number one, throughout the entirety of this show, I have sometimes talked a bit about consistency. Consistency meaning as in how things can become relevant in certain aspects. I did that with my total drama episode, I've done it with my death battle episode as well, and I kind of want to expand on that topic a bit more as well, but into a sort of aspect that I feel like we could understand it, so for a topic that most people could remember, because I very well know for a fact that a majority of people who watched my teaser knew exactly what it was that I would be talking about for today's episode. The second thing I want to talk to you all about is that for today's episode, we will be exploring a bit more into the topic of a certain amount of how well it could hold up into today's standards. Because as you may know, as the years progress, things that we see as being okay back then will always tend to become less and less, good for the current standing of our time. Some things just are bound to change, either because their appearance or the things that they are connected to just isn't, good. It isn't something that you want to, be remembered in certain aspects when it comes to our current year and how we look at certain things. And finally, the third thing I want to go ahead and say is thank you all very much for being a bit patient with me and also for giving me the support of watching some of my videos, even though I haven't been around for quite a while. I know some things are a bit hard for me and things are being hard for us right now, but I know very well for a fact that I will continue to try and do my best for you all so that you can go ahead and enjoy some content from me and so that I can enjoy making you guys happy and always have a nice time. So, let's go ahead and get started with today's topic. As you all know, I am going to be going ahead and discussing a topic that a lot of people may not remember at first glance, but some people will remember because it has become such an aspect of people's lives way back in the day. And I think you all know exactly who I'm talking about when it comes to the title of today's video and what it is that you guys saw from my teaser trailer. Spy versus Spy. It began small, only being a comic strip, a satirical comic strip for the Mad magazine, created by Antonio Projadas, a Cuban cartoonist who would soon create something that would truly bring about a new age for Mad. Spy vs. Spy would soon have its own type of television series, which would come alongside the Mad TV network, which would slowly showcase what Projadas had for his growing amount of popularity for Spy vs. Spy. Ever since the two spies were showcased doing their own things, fighting for each other and trying to assert some sort of dominance over the other, people have just always been hooked with what these two spies could possibly find themselves getting into, no matter what the situation was. But as the years continued to go by, Spy vs. Spy proved itself to be something that was unlike any other comic or any other type of TV series that had been created before. It didn't have a plot line. The only plot line it had were two spies trying to defeat the other. But at the end of the day, even though some of these shorts or some of these parts of the TV show would only be short amounts of seconds or just a certain amount of minutes, Spy vs. Spy would still showcase itself to be gaining a bunch of popularity. So much popularity, in fact, that a full game would be made for the NES, Commodore 64, and other types of gaming consoles during those time periods. It was massive. Spy vs. Spy continued to grow in popularity as more and more games would be created, more comic strips would be made, and the Spy vs. Spy parts of the Mad TV network would see itself continue to grow into a colossal part of Mad magazine and Mad as its own personal type of etched part of Mad. It became clear that if Spy vs. Spy had never been brought along for the ride, Mad could possibly never have had the amount of influence that it used to have back in the day. Because Spy vs. Spy was seen as something that was truly spectacular. So many people were interested in what these spies were doing. So much so that many people tended to go ahead and mainly watch the Spy vs. Spy TV series or to look at the Mad magazine just to see what these two spies were up to, which would in turn continuously grow in popularity and make many people seem much more interested in Mad's very much TV show, mainly because of these two spies. And of course, this was quite a massive point for Mad, as because of these two spies, it would continue to grow and grow, allowing for themselves to continuously create and innovate, with allowing Proharis to do exactly what he needed to do to continue forward and help the Mad team push forward along with many more ideas for what these spies could get themselves into. And that is the growing part of what made Spy vs. Spy a very big and interesting part of the Mad team and the Mad magazine. And this popularity would even continue to soar even after the death of Proharis, which would happen somewhere along the lines of February 24th of 1998. From that point on, someone else would take up the mantle after Proharis' death, a man by the name of Peter Cooper, who would utilize his own style of art, but would maintain the same kind of style and the personification that Proharis had for his original idea for the two spies. Essentially put, that even after the death of Proharis, Cooper continued the Spy vs. Spy legacy, doing it just like Proharis would have wanted it to be, and continued forward with the legacy. Because keep in mind, Spy vs. Spy is said to have been a satirical type of comic strip, which was to be played off of the ideas of the Cold War. And even after the end of the Cold War, which was somewhere around the 1991, this kind of comic would still continue to grow because of the comedy aspects and because of the amount of effort and production was put into every single type of comic and short. Now, to be fair, the shorts may have had a lot of, basically just reenactments, but even in animation form, these reenactments would still provide a whole heaping chance of generating some very much good amounts of personification, because while it's possible for you to personify things in picture format, it feels easier and much better to see these spies actually move in real time and even express more emotion than what you could possibly get just from looking at pictures. And that's what I feel like really became what Spy vs. Spy was, because it provided a chance for you to see more expression and animation to be put throughout a majority of what these spies were put through, which in turn would make even more and more people become very much more interested in what each of these spies were going through. And that's honestly impressive and really much a massive amount of potential and power for Spy vs. Spy. Eventually, with the rise and rapid success of Spy vs. Spy, Mad TV and Mad the company would soon showcase itself to have quite an outstanding feat when it came to creating a type of television show which included these spies to rise in popularity. People during that time could not get enough of these spies. People would make drawings of them, they would wear costumes of them, and even going into the days of Cartoon Network, Spy vs. Spy was prominent in that era too, during what I consider the golden age of Cartoon Network, where Spy vs. Spy and the Mad series would soon show up, and thousands of people, not even thousands, probably like millions of people, truly enjoyed watching this series with the spies, mainly because a majority of people, including myself, just enjoyed watching what those two could get themselves into. Now, of course, what I really do want to state here is that while Spy vs. Spy did manage to grow massively and exponentially, I do have to say that at some point, Spy vs. Spy still couldn't really escape much of potential controversy, as you may recall, because, well, considering the fact that Spy vs. Spy does have some certain aspects of, violence, murder, and, something else that I'm not going to go ahead and say because I feel like I might immediately be hit with a little bit of a you already know what I'm going to say for that. But really, the controversy of Spy vs. Spy, it wasn't really anything that big. In fact, it probably wasn't even anything so big because half the time when you try to see if there was any controversy of Spy vs. Spy, you don't exactly find anything. Well, back then, at least, I believe. Because back then, people were a bit more lenient in what they were going to see. People were willing to watch thousands of movies which included potential murder scenes. And of course, while the children were more than capable of being not having to watch those movies, at the same time, they were still more than capable of allowing majority of their family, if they were willing to, let's not forget that some families were a bit more strict than others, to go ahead and experience and enjoy what certain types of films could provide, given the fact that my stance when it comes to adding gore into movies is that as long as it's not too excessive, and as long as the gore is something that is very much connected to the type of genre of movie, is perfectly, aligned to what's happening, then yeah, gore is acceptable. And in the case of Spy vs. Spy, it's acceptable there because it's basically two spies, and spies tend to utilize certain materials of weapons and types of things because, spies have missions involving assassinations, stealing, and practically almost always having to do something when it comes to taking care of guards and such. So, really, there's not any real problems with the spies doing anything like that because it's just what spies do. Now, of course, when moving forward, we still continue to see a massive rise of Spy vs. Spy because people during that time were just so much more lenient and were so much more interested because back then, this entire series was not just something along the lines of watching two spies just duke it out. I mean, sure, some people may have watched it for that kind of thing, but for other people, it was for the more enjoyable kind of moments. Some people didn't care which spy won. They just wanted to see what those spies were doing and what kind of funny situation they can get themselves into. And I, for one, believe that that is exactly what also makes Spy vs. Spy, quite frankly, an amazing series and something that was actually quite impressive when you come to think about it. Then, of course, we get to the ages where Spy vs. Spy never really had a downfall, but more or less just a fall into the irrelevant category. Because at some point, Spy vs. Spy, they just suddenly disappeared. I mean, heck, half the time, you don't even hear about Spy vs. Spy. And honestly, it was really quite, it was unexpected. Because even if you're capable, you could go onto Google, you could go onto YouTube, you could go anywhere and find practically a lot of information about the spies. But when you actually try and see if anybody remembers some of the episodes or if anybody really remembers that much about the spies, you tend to find out that you don't really get really much answers unless you go on the internet to find out. And honestly, I feel like that began with the fall of Mad itself. Because, let's be quite frank, when Mad Magazine and the Mad series, which Proharis also assisted with, finally began utilizing the Spies with other things as well with their comedies, it truly began to showcase that Mad really did have an amazing type of architecture. But then things just started to change. Things just wouldn't be the same for Spy vs. Spy and the company that would create Mad. And as you'll see in our next section, we'll soon discover and talk more about why it is that the Spies soon would fall into irrelevancy or just obscurity because of the managing amount of change that our society puts. And by the end of that section, we will finally be able to see if whether or not the Spies still maintain some level of relevancy or if they have obscurely been pushed to the darkness to never again be remembered. And when I say not remembered, I mean not remembered as in as the years go on, people that are born and begin to continuously live, and the people that remember it beforehand will not be able to continue it forward, because some people will probably just not even care about that. So join me as we finally go into our final section, which is not the downfall, but the start of irrelevancy for Spy vs. Spy. So, throughout this entire video, I have been discussing a whole lot about Spy vs. Spy's history, going all the way back to Proharis, going through the entire thing of their history, their popularity, springing up when they were part of Mad, to where they were when their popularity was at its highest with the Cartoon Network Mad show. So of course you might be thinking, why is it exactly that I have this section at the very end? Couldn't I just started talking about this from the beginning? And to a degree I could have, but in my opinion, I feel like in order to really discuss a sort of topic like this, people who tend to not know about this, or people who need to remember, I need to make sure that they have this information within their mind and within their head, so that when the time comes for things to go, for them to remember what it was that I went ahead and discussed with them and told them, that they can go ahead and maintain this information in their mind. That's kind of the point of some commentary channels, including mine. I sometimes want to provide assistance, provide information. I'm not exactly one of the biggest ones out there, but I do what I can. So essentially, we're going to be talking about what I believe is not a downfall of Spy vs. Spy, because let's be honest here, a downfall is not the right word for the situation. What I believe the right word for Spy vs. Spy is not downfall, but irrelevancy. And now, if you recall, I did talk about irrelevancy at some point in one of my earlier Lucky episodes, including with the Death Battle episode. Still remember that. Anyways, for this, I'm gonna be going a bit more in depth with this, because I don't feel like I talked enough about irrelevancy. So to basically try and discuss this a bit in a sentence that you could possibly understand a bit, let's talk about the difference between irrelevancy and downfalls. Now, for starters, downfalls are completely different from irrelevancy, in my opinion, because they are something that can completely destroy the career, the popularity, and just basically make it so that whatever exactly it is that had its downfall can never again really come back into light. On rare occasions does anything or anybody try to come back after having a downfall. And those kinds of things are quite disastrous when the time strikes. And they normally come when new things start to come out about what these kinds of things or these kinds of people did, which in turn makes it so that when you're hit with a downfall, you normally aren't going to get back up. Unless you have some sure way of bringing yourself back to where you were, you are never going to come back from a downfall. Now, I know that there's rare cases, but even then, they're called rare cases for a reason, because practically all the other times, you're rarely going to be able to come back from a downfall. And that's practically a fact, if not just a bit of a statistic. There you go. Anyways, now moving on to an irrelevancy. Irrelevancy is, of course, very much different than a downfall, because irrelevancy, whilst a downfall is consistent to the actions that the person has done over the years, irrelevancy is more connected to the changes that we've made to our society throughout the years. Now, the only similarity there is the year part, but the main difference is the actions that the person has done, and the changes that we as people in society have changed throughout the years as they progress. Because think about it. Nowadays, when we think that something is irrelevant, we think about things that are very back in the day, very old-fashioned clothes, old-fashioned cars, old-fashioned practically everything. Because nowadays we have much further advanced technology, we have spaceships, we have phones, we have computers, we have a whole lot of stuff. And let's be honest here, making YouTube videos back in the day would have probably been an absolute pain in the butt. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, irrelevancy can really go ahead and, while it's not bad, it can provide some negative things to happen. Such as the case of the main one being, people tend to start to forget, mainly not because they don't like it, but because they don't remember it. You see, when something becomes irrelevant, the people that already know about that exact kind of thing sometimes will be able to tell that to other people. It's basically spread it so that it continues to go down a line of generations that people can utilize to remember. I mean, that's literally how history works. Like, we got historians to write this stuff down so that they can be passed on. History can never be irrelevant because it's history. So that's one of the main big exceptions to ever being irrelevant. We can never call history irrelevant. So, I mean, we can call it uneventful, but irrelevant, no, we can't go with that line. But yeah, moving on. To best explain this, let's take this example of a woman who went ahead and dressed of 1960s clothing, going so far as to get herself an old-fashioned 1960s or 70s car, and even getting her husband to do the same thing. Now, what I want to try and get from this is basically just the simple fact that this woman had utilized her own liking of the 1960s or 70s to go ahead and go through with this elaborate plan of dressing up as the 1960s and living like the 1960s practically every day of her life. Now, I understand that some people don't want to go ahead and wear, the old-fashioned clothes because they want the new and more hippier stuff. I know I probably sounded cringe by saying that, but I just want to point out certain things that become irrelevant, whilst they do lose a high amount or sometimes a very low amount of remembrance or even popularity. In the case of Spy vs. Spy, I think it's a little bit different, because yes, while the years go by, we have seen a very, very low decrease in people that could probably know what Spy vs. Spy is. Because I know a lot of people that very personally never have heard of Spy vs. Spy. And that, for one, makes me feel like I'm old, because I remember Spy vs. Spy all the way back in 2000, and that's just, it makes me feel old. But yeah, moving right along, all I can really say is that Spy vs. Spy may be irrelevant. It is 100% irrelevant, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. Because remember, there's another big main difference that I almost forgot to tell when it comes to irrelevancy and a downfall. Remember, downfalls make it so that you can practically never have a chance to come back from them, because they hit you so hard in the areas that you are most vulnerable in that they practically make it so that it's almost impossible. For irrelevance, however, there is a much bigger chance of you being able to come back, as long as, I believe, if you are in a section known as the goods. Because I believe there's a section of good and bad irrelevance. The bad irrelevance are ones that most people tend to never want to bring back up, because those memories are possibly either very evil or just painful to ever really talk about. And meanwhile, in the good section, these are things that some people still remember and keep within their brains as memories so that they can pass on to their friends to try and go ahead and keep this sort of legacy of their favorite thing alive. of course, as the thing with Spy vs. Spy, because as the years have progressed, whilst many people have forgotten a bit about Spy vs. Spy, there have been multitudes of other people, however, who still maintain a great amount of knowledge of Spy vs. Spy. Now, of course, it's not your decision if you, it is your decision, my bad. It's your decision if you want to remember something. I understand that some people do wish to sometimes remember things if they're very dear to their hearts, or if they don't, if because, it might be a very traumatizing memory. I understand that. But what you also need to understand is that sometimes some things are very much, like, I wouldn't say required, but I believe that some things must be remembered, even if by only a small amount of people. Because Spy vs. Spy is a type of comedy that, honestly, I have yet to see in any other show so far. Now, does that mean that all the other shows that I've seen so far are worse than Spy vs. Spy? Of course not. Spy vs. Spy may have been an amazing show, it may have been a very pinnacle of comedy and entertainment, but I will admit the newest shows that we've been getting nowadays, some of them provide quite a whole lot of higher amounts of, entertainment than what Spy vs. Spy could give us. But I do believe that if Spy vs. Spy was capable of keeping itself alive to this day, or even having its own TV show, it could be possible that Spy vs. Spy could easily have been capable of getting itself back on its feet, or possibly even getting itself a way to may become recognizable, or even becoming, fan favorites or something. I mean, I know those might be a bit of a stretch, but even then, you sometimes got to take into account that even though Spy vs. Spy may become irrelevant now, there is still a high chance that Spy vs. Spy can come back in some way and format. Because if I recall, there were talks about a potential Spy vs. Spy Mad movie. So Mad is still around, as far as I can tell, but we just haven't heard from them from that long, because Warner Brothers is really the ones that own Spy vs. Spy, and if they're the ones that are not using Spy vs. Spy for literally years, then our chances of ever seeing these two again are very slim. But just remember, I said slim, not little to nothing. So, to really go ahead and finalize this off, I want to go ahead and just say two things. Two things that I want you guys to make sure that you keep within your mind and think about the next time that you try to think about something that's irrelevant or something that you believe could possibly never come back. One is that some things may become irrelevant. We understand that. However, don't forget that some things, mainly for the good things, that those things can come back in any way and format. Whether it be a rebirth or being utilized or being kept alive by the community or something anywhere along the lines of that. Something that's good can come back in a better way or in a way like the same state that it was. Because honestly, some good things never really die. They just tend to be forgotten unless they are brought back. Now, the second thing I want you all to also remember is that I really do appreciate that you have decided to watch this video, because this video did take a very long time to complete, mainly because of procrastination on my part, but also because of things that have been going along around here within my own life. And as Mr. Future Lucky will explain, as you will see him in just a few seconds, I really should have picked up my pace with this one. But until then, I just want to go ahead and say thank you all for watching, and if you really did enjoy, go ahead and comment down below, and just say anything you want. No racist things or anything bad, But until then, I'll let Future Lucky end things off for me. This is Lucky Explosion, and I will see you all in the next episode. Ciao. Hello everyone, it's me, Lucky Explosion, and yep, for the first time, or probably the second time, you're actually capable of seeing me again. And of course, this has been a very long ride to try to get this episode done and dusted with. I understand that there have been a lot of questions, or possibly maybe some questions that you guys wanted to ask concerning about where I've been for a couple of months. I understand that I have not really kept up to code with what I was trying to do, when it came to my recordings and my episodes. This episode of The Lucky Show has taken the longest of its time because of many different factors, which I'm going to just briefly talk about for the poor part this final section of the video. To be honest, I honestly wanted to try and get this video out as fast as I could, which is why I made sure to immediately start with the video as soon as I could, but in reality, school was a main issue with me trying to juggle both that and making a video, because normally these videos take about almost a week to do. But if the week consists of high amounts of schoolwork or even just a couple of things that I have to really take care of, it's honestly going to make making videos a big of an issue. And honestly, another thing too is that I am quite a bit of a procrastinator sometimes. I can really be somebody that won't exactly focus on something that I don't exactly deem too important. Because sometimes when it comes to really trying to become a YouTuber, you really don't have, like I said, this is really a hobby. I'm not trying to make this something into like something big for now, unless I really want to make YouTube a full thing. YouTube is really just something that I want to use to try and provide entertainment, provide any amount of assistance that I can to other people during the times that we are in right now. Because I know and I understand that other commentary YouTubers do almost the kind of the same thing that I do as well, but at times I really do want to very much commit to the fact that this is not a channel that is made to gain money. I am not going to gain money. I don't wish to gain money. And at some point, even if I do go ahead and become a fully fledged YouTuber, this will not change how I feel when it comes to going ahead and utilizing YouTube as a way to make money. Because most people who use YouTube that make money tend to try to use it as a way to just scam others, try to use it as a means of way to just make it a full-time job. And while I'm not going to say that doing that is a good idea, in my opinion and in my current situation, full-time YouTube is just not something that I'm really ready for, which is why I'm trying to maintain that exact kind of momentum with the monthly uploads. Now, of course, I will eventually end The Lucky Show for a first season. A second season will possibly come out if I have the time, but during that time, I'll probably have a hiatus from The Lucky Show to focus on other types of interesting concepts or videos I want to try to do. That'll probably include some of my friends, just to add a bit more spice to this channel. This may just be a commentary channel for now, but I have bigger plans for what I want to do with this thing to provide more entertainment, more different amounts of assistance, and of course, just to have fun with it. So, to go ahead and finalize this off, I just want to go ahead and say one thing. Thank you all once again for watching. And if you really want to go ahead and support me, all you really have to do is just watch the video. You don't really have to like it, you don't have to comment. All I really need is for people to just watch my video every once in a while, enjoy it, and then when the next one comes out, they also enjoy that too. I'm not going to force you to like and subscribe. I'm not going to force you to do anything. Your decision, your right. You subscribe if you want to. You subscribe or you like if you want. But I'm letting the decision be yours, because I know a lot of YouTubers don't tend to do this. But anyways, this has been Lucky Explosion, and I really do hope you all enjoy your day and enjoy a very good night's rest, because it is nighttime when I'm making this. So, ciao.